This is True Crime Stories for Sleep. It begins with a split second, a moment when impulse overtakes judgment, when a keyboard becomes more powerful than reason, and when the entire world becomes an unintended audience. The internet has given people a way to be seen, to be heard, and to leave a mark, but for some, that urge to broadcast their lives becomes the very mistake that exposes everything. In the early 2010s, one teenager's decision to share her words online didn't just change her life. It turned a reckless message into a chilling timestamp of what was coming. Before we continue, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. It helps us reach more viewers who enjoy deep dive true crime storytelling just like this. Now let's move deeper into the story. Her name was Kayla Mendoza, an ordinary 20-year-old from South Florida who worked at a T-Mobile store, went out with friends, and posted constantly on social media. Her feed was filled with the typical snapshots of youth, selfies, group photos, inside jokes, and slang-filled tweets that disappeared into the endless scroll of the internet. But one message stood out, a brief late-night post sent while she was out drinking. Too drunk to care. It was flippant, short, and carried the casual bravado of someone who didn't imagine anyone outside her circle would ever read it. But that tweet would later become infamous, something repeated by reporters, displayed in courtrooms, and debated by millions of strangers. The digital world, which once seemed like a playground, was about to turn into a spotlight. Hours after sending that tweet, Kayla left a bar and drove off alone, heading down the Sawgrass Expressway. But she was going the wrong way. Instead of traveling with traffic, she was driving directly into it, headlights cutting through the dark like a warning that went unheeded. Cars flashed their lights, drivers swerved, and 911 calls lit up switchboards as people tried desperately to alert authorities. Yet the speeding car didn't stop, didn't slow, didn't correct its path. Up ahead were two young women, Marissa Catronio and Caitlin Ferrante, both 21 years old, driving home together after a night out. They were talking, laughing, completely unaware that a wrong-way car was racing toward them at nearly 80 miles per hour. In the space of a few heartbeats, their headlights met Kayla's. There was no time to react. No time to brake. No time to avoid the inevitable. The impact was catastrophic. Marissa was killed instantly. Caitlin suffered critical injuries she would never recover from. Paramedics worked frantically, police sealed off the highway, and for hours the only movement came from flashing lights and the quiet murmur of investigators documenting the wreckage that had once been two separate cars. When officers reached Kayla, she was dazed, injured, and barely conscious. They didn't know yet that she had been drinking. They didn't know about the tweet. They didn't know that the crash was the tragic end of a chain of decisions that began with a night out and a moment of online bravado. But soon, every piece of her digital footprint would come under scrutiny. The investigation started quickly. Toxicology reports showed her blood alcohol level was nearly twice the legal limit. Witnesses confirmed she had been drinking heavily before leaving the bar. Surveillance footage showed her stumbling. And then, in the middle of the evidence pile, detectives found something else, the tweet. Too drunk to care. A message that would have been meaningless on any other night suddenly became a haunting acknowledgement of her state of mind. Screenshots spread online. News stations aired it again and again. It became a symbol of recklessness, a phrase that seemed to echo the tragic collision. Meanwhile, Kayla recovered in the hospital, unaware of the storm brewing outside. The families of Marissa and Caitlin were living every parent's nightmare, standing at hospital bedsides, answering calls from detectives, trying to process what had happened. And then reporters began asking about the tweet, showing it to them, asking for reactions, pushing microphones in their faces. The hurt deepened. By the time authorities prepared to charge Kayla, the internet had already made her a public villain. People debated her online, shouted their anger in comment sections, and treated the tweet as a confession. The story spread nationwide, then internationally, a digital wildfire that couldn't be extinguished. Months later, when Kayla entered the courtroom for the first time, she walked slowly, supported by crutches. Her head was down, her hair pulled back, her face pale. Across the room sat the families of the victims, their grief obvious in their eyes, their posture, the way they held on to each other. The prosecutors laid out their case: the drinking, the wrong way driving, the tweet. Screens displayed the words in large print, as though the message itself were on trial. Kayla's attorneys didn't argue the facts. They didn't deny what she had done. Instead, they tried to present her as a scared, remorseful young woman who made a terrible mistake. But the courtroom didn't see a mistake. It saw devastation, loss, and a message that had carried a terrible meaning. Too drunk to care. When the judge read the sentence, 24 years in prison, Kayla broke down completely. Her voice cracked, her shoulders shook, and she apologized repeatedly through sobs. The families cried too, but their pain wasn't relieved. Nothing could undo the night of the crash. No sentence could bring back Marissa or restore Caitlin's life. And still, the internet remembered. The tweet continued to circulate for years as a cautionary tale, a reminder of how a casual online post could outlive every intention behind it. Kayla's name remained attached to that message, and to the tragedy that followed. In the years that came after, young drivers cited her story in classrooms. Teachers used it in lessons about social media responsibility. Police departments referenced it in awareness campaigns. The world had changed, and the digital world had become inseparable from real-world consequences. Kayla eventually spoke from prison during interviews, saying she wished she could take back that message, that drink, that drive. But the past remained fixed, an online sentence written in permanent ink. What began as a moment of reckless posting became a permanent shadow on countless lives. And for the world watching, it was the clearest example of how a single message, written in a second, could become a defining moment forever recorded in the archives of the internet. The morning began like any other for James Wood. The sun was rising over South St. Paul, the neighborhood still quiet, the kind of silence that made a man feel like everything was in its place. He had been gone just a few hours, long enough to visit a friend, grab breakfast, and run a few errands. When he pulled into his driveway, he didn't notice anything unusual at first. The house looked the same, the windows intact, the lawn still as unremarkable as it always was. But the moment he opened the front door, he felt it, an absence, a wrongness. Something was off. The air seemed disturbed, as though it had carried someone else's breath. A cushion was on the floor. A drawer was half open. His dog barked in that confused, uneasy way that animals do when the world changes without warning. James walked into the living room, scanning for signs of what his instinct was already telling him. Then he saw it, the back door slightly ajar. His stomach dropped. He moved fast now, checking the rooms one by one. His laptop was missing. His wallet was gone. His watch, his spare keys, even spare clothes, vanished. And whoever had been inside hadn't rushed. They had wandered through the house, touching everything, helping themselves like they owned the place. He called the police immediately. Officers took fingerprints, asked questions, made notes on their pads. They assured him they'd search for leads, but James wasn't optimistic. He knew how break-ins went. Without solid evidence, things vanished into the system, lost among 1,000 other reports. Hours later, when the officers left and the house settled back into its uneasy quiet, James sat down at his computer desk, staring at the empty space where his laptop had once been. He reached for his phone. He couldn't do much, but he could at least check his Facebook messages on the app, maybe warn his friends, maybe distract himself while the adrenaline faded. He opened Facebook, and froze. There, at the top of his feed, was a notification, an alert that someone had logged into his account. A new post. A new photo. His thumb hovered over the screen, dread rising in him as he tapped the alert. Then his jaw dropped out. A man was staring back at him. A stranger. Bare-chested, wearing James's sunglasses, flashing a crooked smile at the camera. Behind him, unmistakably, was James's own living room. The burglar had taken a selfie on James's phone in James's house, and posted it to James's Facebook page. For a moment, James couldn't decide whether to be furious or astonished. The audacity? The stupidity? Who did this? Who breaks into a home, steals everything, and then logs into the victim's Facebook account to take pictures? But the face was clear, the photo crisp, the background undeniable. James didn't hesitate. He called the police again. When the officers returned, he held the phone up to them like he had found a missing puzzle piece. One of the officers stared at the photo, then looked at James, then back at the photo. "You're kidding," the officer said. "I wish I was," James replied. The photo had been posted only minutes earlier, and as the officers scrolled the page, they found even more activity, comments, messages, posts that didn't belong to James. The intruder had not only taken pictures, he had browsed through messages, looked at photos, and typed as though the account were his own. It was as if he treated the login as a free gift from the home he had stolen from. A name surfaced quickly: Nicholas Wig. It appeared in a message thread, in a friend request, in little digital footprints scattered across the account. If the selfie wasn't enough, this was the final confirmation. Nicholas had broken in. Nicholas had stolen. Nicholas had posted it all online. The police ran his name. He wasn't unknown. A few outstanding records. Prior offenses. A trail of petty crimes and juvenile trouble. But this was something different. This was a man who had practically solved his own case. The officers couldn't hide their disbelief. Neither could James. The entire situation felt surreal, as though it belonged in a comedy sketch, not a police report. Within hours, the search for Nicholas began, and it didn't take long. There aren't many places to hide when your face is circulating online, shared by furious victims and amused residents. People recognized him. Tips came in. And by the next morning, officers spotted him walking down the street wearing the same clothes from the selfie. When they approached, he didn't run. He didn't hide. He seemed almost resigned to the inevitable. One of the officers later said it was as though Nicholas hadn't fully processed what he'd done, as though it hadn't occurred to him that logging into someone's Facebook account during a burglary would lead straight back to him. When James received the call that Nicholas had been arrested, he felt a rush of relief, but also disbelief that something so bizarre had actually come full circle. He drove to the police station to identify some of the stolen items recovered from Nicholas: clothes, keys, a watch, the laptop, and even loose change from his drawers. As the officers went through the inventory, one held up a pair of sunglasses. "Recognize these?" he asked. James laughed in spite of himself. "Yep," he said. "Those are the ones he wore in the selfie." The officers smiled, shaking their heads. Even they couldn't quite believe the absurdity of the case. In their line of work, criminals often tried to erase evidence, hide their tracks, cover their identities. But Nicholas had done the exact opposite. He had created evidence. He had documented his presence. He had offered the police a full-color portrait of the suspect in the middle of the crime scene. Word spread quickly, and soon the story was everywhere, on local news, national news, online headlines, and social media. People were stunned by the sheer carelessness. Others treated it as a punchline. But for James, it wasn't a joke. It was his home, his belongings, his privacy that had been invaded. In court, Nicholas looked nothing like the smirking figure from the selfie. He wore a plain shirt, stood quietly beside his attorney, and stared at the floor as charges were read. There were no defenses, no explanations that made sense, no argument that could erase the digital trail he'd left behind. The judge delivered the sentence, and Nicholas nodded numbly. He wasn't angry. He wasn't defiant. He was simply a young man who had made a string of reckless decisions that led him exactly where everyone expected. James watched from the back of the courtroom, feeling a mixture of closure and disbelief. He never expected the case to unfold this way. Never imagined the solution would fall into his lap, posted freely on his own Facebook page. Over time, life went back to normal. The house was repaired. The stolen items were returned. But the story lingered in the town's memory, a strange, unbelievable tale of a burglar who caught himself with the click of a button. And every time James scrolled through his phone and saw that saved selfie, he shook his head and muttered the same thing. If he hadn't posted that picture, they might have never found him. But he did, and that moment of arrogance, curiosity, or plain foolishness became a permanent reminder that in a world where everything can be shared with the tap of a screen, sometimes the most foolish evidence is the kind criminals create themselves. The video begins with a shaky camera, the kind held by someone who wants an audience but hasn't quite figured out how to be the personality they imagine. A young man appears in the frame, grinning wide, wearing a baseball cap tilted off-center and a hoodie with the strings dangling unevenly. Behind him, the fluorescent lighting of a gas station convenience store buzzes softly, filling the silence between his words. "Yo, what's up everybody?" he says to the camera, attempting the confident swagger he's seen in countless other YouTube vloggers. "I'm about to show you how to get free stuff with someone else's plastic." He pauses, his grin widening, convinced that what he's doing is edgy, dangerous, entertaining. He has no sense of the consequences waiting for him, no understanding that this moment, this video, will follow him forever. He flashes a credit card toward the camera, the numbers clearly visible, the name readable to anyone who cares to look. It belongs to a stranger, someone who is miles away, unaware that their life is about to be disrupted by a crime committed not in the shadows, but proudly, deliberately, in front of a lens. The young man calls himself Ice JJ Fish Jr. Online, an attempt to ride the shockwave fame of another internet personality. His goal is views, attention, a viral moment that will launch him into the strange orbit of people who do reckless things because an audience might be watching. He doesn't realize that the audience watching will eventually include detectives, officers, prosecutors, and a judge who will replay his footage frame by frame in a courtroom. Before posting the infamous video, he had stolen the credit card from a parked car. It was a crime of opportunity, the kind committed by someone who has spent too much time online and too little time thinking about consequences. He broke into the vehicle, grabbed the wallet, rifled through it, and found what he believed was his golden ticket, a card with an available balance. Many criminals would take the card, use it quietly, keep their heads down, and do whatever they could to avoid attention. He did the opposite. He wanted the world to know what he had done. The video continues as he enters the gas station. He narrates his every move, as though his viewers are his accomplices. He picks out snacks, energy drinks, even a pack of cigarettes. He holds up each item to the camera, boasting about how he isn't paying for any of it. "This is how you do it," he says, laughing loudly enough that the cashier glances at him with suspicion. But the cashier doesn't stop him. In that moment, the young man believes he's invincible. He believes he's clever. He believes he has outsmarted the world. At the counter, he hands the stolen credit card to the cashier. The camera remains on, tilted upward now, catching the transaction from below. The cashier swipes the card without comment. The approval code beeps. The young man cheers triumphantly, as if he has just won the lottery. Back outside, he waves the receipt at the camera. "It worked!" he shouts. "I told you, man! Free stuff! That's how you do it!" His excitement is raw and unfiltered. But so is the evidence. What he doesn't know is that the credit card's actual owner, a middle-aged man named Aaron in a nearby town, has already reported the card stolen. 30 minutes after discovering his broken car window, Aaron called the police. The officers noted the theft and began monitoring the card for activity. The moment the gas station purchase appeared, the system flagged it. Officers contacted the station, requesting surveillance footage. The clerk recalled a loud young man recording himself with a phone while making the purchase. And then, less than an hour later, the police stumbled upon the video, because he posted it publicly on YouTube. He didn't hide it. He didn't blur the card. He didn't mask his face. He uploaded the entire crime, unedited, titled with all the arrogance of someone who believed himself untouchable. Using a stolen credit card, free stuff tutorial. The video gained 100 views in 2 hours. Then 500. Then 1,000. The comments section split quickly. Some viewers laughed, calling him bold or stupid. Others warned him police were probably already watching. The police were watching. They downloaded the video. They paused on the shot of the credit card, capturing the numbers. They zoomed in on his face. They ran the timestamp against the store's surveillance system. They matched his clothes, his height, his voice. They even pulled the convenience store's security footage to pair with the YouTube one. There was no mystery to solve. No pursuit. No forensics. No detective work. Really. He had done the police's job for them. When officers arrived at his house, he wasn't hiding. He wasn't even off YouTube. He was live streaming, telling viewers he was about to hit Walmart next. The officers knocked. He looked up from his screen, confused, then irritated, until the reality of the situation dawned on him. They told him he was under arrest for credit card fraud. He asked, incredulous. "How did you find me?" The officer pointed at the computer screen. "You posted it," he said. In court, the prosecution didn't need to make a complicated argument. They simply played the video. The jury watched the entire crime unfold, narrated by the criminal himself, with every incriminating detail proudly displayed for the camera. The stolen credit card, the gas station, his face, his voice, his bragging, the receipt. There was no defense that could counter the evidence because the evidence was his own creation. The young man sat in silence as the courtroom watched, his earlier bravado gone. The YouTube ego dissolved. In its place was the dawning realization that a few minutes of attention had cost him far more than he understood at the time. The judge sentenced him to probation and restitution, noting that the case was one of the most bizarre examples of self-incrimination he had seen in his career. Even the detective assigned to the case admitted that the investigation was the easiest he'd ever done. After sentencing, the young man made no public statement. His channel was deleted. The video, however, survived elsewhere, mirrored, clipped, shared, redistributed by people who couldn't believe someone would publicly document a crime and upload it to the world. Aaron, the victim, eventually received compensation and had his card replaced. When asked about the incident, he shook his head, stunned at the surreal nature of it all. "It's one thing to get robbed," he said. "But it's another thing entirely when the robber films the crime like he's making a tutorial." In the years that followed, the case became a cautionary tale, not just about credit card theft, but about the illusion of invincibility created by cameras, social media, and the craving for digital recognition. The young man didn't simply steal a card, he traded common sense for attention. And the internet never forgets a mistake so public, so reckless, so astonishingly self-sabotaging. The engine roared the moment he hit the gas, fishtailing through the intersection as the stolen Dodge Challenger surged forward. Inside the car, a phone was mounted on the dashboard, tilted slightly upward, capturing the driver's face illuminated by neon streetlights. His Instagram live feed had already attracted a few dozen viewers. Comments flew across the screen as one viewer typed, "Bro, what are you doing?" And another wrote, "This ain't gonna end well." But the man behind the wheel, 26-year-old Marcus, known online as M-Drift, wasn't reading the warnings. He was too busy grinning, nodding along to music blasting through the speakers. He ran one hand along the steering wheel and pointed the other at the camera. "Yo! They ain't catching me today!" he shouted. "We out here! We really out here!" Moments earlier, he had stolen the Challenger from a gas station pump while the owner was inside paying for snacks. It was an impulsive decision, the kind that would take most people a moment to regret, but Marcus didn't hesitate. He saw the opportunity, jumped in, slammed the door, and took off. And before he'd even reached the first stoplight, he started a live stream. Because for him, the chase wasn't just a crime, it was content. His followers were used to videos of him drifting in parking lots, burning rubber late at night, and showing off other people's cars that he swore were borrowed. But this was different. This wasn't staged. This wasn't a prank. This was a full-speed, real-time escape. The sirens appeared almost immediately behind him, faint at first, then growing louder. The flashing blue and red lights reflected off the back window. Instead of panicking, Marcus leaned closer to the camera. "There they go," he said, laughing. "They want me so bad, man!" He slammed his foot on the accelerator. The car shot forward like a bullet. The live stream viewers multiplied by the second, first 50, then 100, then a few hundred. People who didn't even follow him began tuning in as the video started trending locally. "Hit a drift! Bro, you're insane. You're going to jail. Turn the camera around, he obliged, switching the camera to the rear-facing view, revealing the police cruiser gaining ground behind him. The sirens wailed louder, bouncing off the empty storefronts and echoing down the street. He turned the camera back to himself. Let them chase, he said. I'm built for this. He wasn't. Marcus sped through the city streets, weaving between cars, cutting through yellow lights, and nearly clipping a bus at an intersection. With one hand on the steering wheel and one hand adjusting his camera angle, he treated the entire pursuit like a vlog. Every risky maneuver boosted his confidence. Every sharp turn drew cheers from the online audience. Every "you're done for" comment made him laugh even harder. He felt invincible, not because he was escaping, but because people were watching. The chase escalated. More police units joined. A helicopter illuminated the Challenger with a spotlight, bathing the car in harsh white light. Viewers pointed it out in the live stream chat. They got the bird on you. Bro, this is GTA but IRL. You're definitely not escaping now. Marcus looked up at the spotlight and smiled. I told y'all, I'm made for this, he shouted. But underneath the bravado, the cracks were forming. The car was reaching its limits. The tires screeched on every tight corner, the engine growled louder than it should, and the smell of burning rubber seeped into the cabin. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead, though he played it off by pretending the interior was just too hot. The truth was different. He was scared, but the camera refused to let him show it. Viewers demanded more. Go faster! Take the freeway! Hit the bridge! And fueled by their encouragement, he turned toward the interstate. As he merged onto the ramp, he accelerated again. But this time, a police cruiser swooped in from the side, attempting to block him. Marcus swerved hard, clipping the guardrail. His phone nearly fell off the dashboard. Whoa! He shouted, grabbing the device mid-fall. He held it up, grinning. Still here! They can't shake me off! But they weren't the ones falling apart. He was. The comments began shifting from excitement to concern. Stop, bro. You're gonna hurt someone. This isn't funny anymore. End the live and pull over. Marcus ignored them. His heartbeat was loud enough to match the sirens. The freeway opened into several lanes, and he took advantage, pushing the Challenger well past the legal limit. The wind noise swallowed his voice, making him shout louder to be heard on camera. The helicopter remained overhead, a constant reminder that his escape was never truly possible. In the police station, officers monitoring social media had already pulled up his live stream feed. They knew exactly what he was doing, exactly where he was, and exactly what direction he was heading. His attempt at fame had removed all uncertainty. He was broadcasting his location in real time. As Marcus barreled down the freeway, a spike strip deployment was coordinated ahead of him. Officers knew he was coming. They knew the speed he was driving. They knew what moves he was most likely to make. Marcus didn't know any of that. He saw flashing lights ahead and assumed it was another cruiser trying to block him. He smirked. Watch this, he said to the camera, preparing to swerve again. He didn't watch closely enough. When the Challenger's front tires hit the spike strip, they shredded instantly. The car jerked violently, the steering wheel kicked in his hands, and the entire vehicle fishtailed uncontrollably. His phone flew from his grip, landing sideways against the passenger seat, still recording, still broadcasting to hundreds of viewers. The Challenger spun twice before slamming into the guardrail. The airbags exploded with a muffled thud. Viewers stared at the tilted live stream image, blurred movement, frantic breathing, the distant echo of sirens closing in. For the first time, Marcus didn't say a word. The comments poured in. Bro? You alive? Turn the camera around. Say something. He groaned, trying to push himself upright. His hoodie was covered in white airbag dust. His hands shook. The camera captured the moment officers approached the vehicle, shouting commands. A flashlight beam filled the frame. Then the stream ended. The footage didn't disappear. Copies circulated across multiple platforms within minutes. It became evidence. Prosecutors used it to build an overwhelmingly strong case, evading police, reckless driving, vehicle theft, endangerment, and documenting the entire crime spree publicly. There was no argument he could make, no denial he could offer, no explanation that could undo the digital trail he had created. In the courtroom, the prosecutor did not call many witnesses. They didn't need to. They simply played his live stream for the jury. The theft, the chase, the near crashes, his comments, it was all preserved in crystal clear detail. Marcus sat quietly, the same hands that once gripped the steering wheel now folded trembling in his lap. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. He was sentenced to several years in prison, far longer than the short burst of online fame he chased. The judge remarked that the live stream was the most reckless display of self-incrimination he had ever seen, and though the stolen Challenger was eventually repaired, the internet never forgot the man who treated a police chase like a performance. Marcus finally got the audience he wanted, but not the ending he expected. The flames were still rising when the first fire truck turned onto the street. Smoke billowed upward in thick, twisting clouds, illuminated orange from below as if the sky itself were burning. Neighbors stood outside in pajamas and slippers, watching in disbelief as the abandoned storage building collapsed inward. It wasn't a small fire. It was a full-scale inferno, one that would take firefighters hours to control, and while they rushed to put it out, the person responsible was only a few blocks away, sitting on the edge of his bed, refreshing his Facebook feed to see how many likes he had received on a photo he had posted just minutes earlier. The image was blurry, taken in the dark, but unmistakable, the building engulfed in flames. In the caption, he wrote one word: boom. 16-year-old Tyler had never set a fire before, not a real one, not the kind that could take down a building and require half a dozen fire engines. But that night, armed with a can of gasoline he had stolen from his neighbor's shed, he convinced himself that the old storage facility behind the railroad tracks would be the perfect target. It had been abandoned for years. Kids tagged graffiti on the walls. People dumped old furniture behind it. No one would care if it burned, he thought. But setting a fire wasn't really the part that excited him. The part he wanted most was the reaction. He wanted people to gasp when they saw the flames lighting up the night. He wanted the other kids at school to talk about it the next morning. He wanted strangers online to be impressed. The fire wasn't the end goal, it was the content. Tyler wasn't a hardened criminal or a mastermind. He was a teenager who spent hours scrolling social media, watching people go viral for reckless stunts, pranks gone wrong, or momentary chaos recorded on shaky cell phone videos. He wanted the same rush, the same attention, the same comments telling him how wild or fearless he was. So, he poured the gasoline along the base of the building, lit a match, and stepped back. The ignition was faster than he expected. A sudden whoosh of heat rushed toward him, forcing him to jump away. Within seconds, the flames climbed the wall like they had been waiting for the chance. The fire grew so quickly that he staggered backward, almost tripping in the dirt. But he also smiled. He pulled out his phone, snapped the photo, and ran. By the time he reached home, the distant sound of sirens had already begun echoing through the neighborhood. He didn't rush inside. He didn't hide. Instead, he opened Facebook and posted the picture.at first. Only a few friends reacted. "Where's that? Did you do that, LOL? Is that real?" Tyler replied with vague answers, trying to sound mysterious but not too mysterious, just enough for people to wonder. He soaked in the attention. He refreshed the page every few seconds. He watched the like counter tick upward. Meanwhile, firefighters struggled to contain the blaze. Inside the station, dispatchers were receiving dozens of calls. The fire was visible from blocks away. Flames shot higher than the streetlights. Embers drifted through the air. And a police officer assigned to monitor local social media chatter noticed a new post beginning to gain traction. The image was time-stamped only minutes before the first fire truck arrived. The caption was boastful. And the account belonged to a teenage boy who had never posted anything like that before. The officer forwarded it to the arson investigation team. By the time midnight rolled around, Tyler had fallen asleep with his phone still in his hand. the bright screen lighting his pillow. He didn't think he had done anything wrong, not really. In his mind, he hadn't hurt anyone. The building was abandoned. No property inside. No victims. Just a fire for show. And the comments made it feel like a harmless dare he had impressed people with. But the investigators didn't see it that way. The fire had spread faster than expected. The heat had warped metal beams, caused the roof to collapse, and required more resources than most small structure fires. Firefighters had been working for hours, risking injury. And the investigators now had what they believed to be photographic evidence, not of an onlooker, but of the person who started it. Tyler woke the next morning to a notification that froze his stomach, a private message from a police account. "Please contact us regarding the fire last night." He stared at it for a long moment, unable to process the weight of it. When he clicked out of the message, he noticed something else. His post had been shared dozens of times. Not by friends, but by adults in the community, neighbors, parents, even strangers who commented things like, "Who is this kid? He admitted to it. Someone needs to report this." His chest tightened. It was no longer attention. It was accusation. Before he could delete the post, 2 police cruisers pulled up outside his house. His mother opened the door, confused, wiping her hands on a dish towel. The officers asked if Tyler was home. She called him downstairs. When he saw them standing in the living room, his face went pale. They asked him about the post. They asked him about the building. They asked him if he knew why they were there. And even though he tried to deny involvement at first, the evidence was overwhelming. His location the night before. His walk home caught by a neighbor's doorbell camera. The smell of gasoline still lingering on his shoes. But most importantly, the picture posted online at exactly the time the fire started. A teenage impulse had created a full confession. When they took him outside, several neighbors stood watching from their porches. Some whispered. Some glared. One shook their head in disbelief. At the police station, investigators showed him the damage images. Entire sections of the building destroyed, debris scattered, scorch marks stretching out toward nearby brush. They explained that firefighters had prevented the flames from spreading to the railroad line or the adjacent houses. If the wind had blown a different direction that night, the fire could have easily reached people's homes. The weight of it crashed down on him for the first time. In court, prosecutors emphasized the seriousness of the act. Even if the building was abandoned, the fire had endangered the community. And the fact that he bragged about it online made the case straightforward. There was no mystery. No ambiguous evidence. He had documented everything himself. The judge gave him a stern lecture, noting that the fire could have caused devastating consequences. Tyler stared at the floor, his earlier excitement replaced by a hollow dread. He received a juvenile sentence with fire safety courses, community service, and restitution costs, an amount far beyond what a 16-year-old could easily comprehend. His Facebook post was taken down. But screenshots continued to circulate at school. The same kids who once hyped him up now whispered about him in hallways. His attempt to gain popularity had backfired in the most dramatic way possible. In the end, the flames went out. But the image he posted never did. The mall was quieting down for the evening, the last wave of shoppers drifting toward the exits as closing time approached. Security guards did their final rounds, store employees folded clothes for the next day, and the food court lights dimmed row by row. But tucked into the far corner, near the escalators and the photo booth, someone was filming. 20-year-old Dana held her phone high, angling it just right so that the bright overhead lights gave her face a soft glow. Her live stream was already active, the chat crawling with comments from the small but loyal audience she had gathered over the past year. She called them her ride or dies, and she talked to them like they were her best friends. "Okay, y'all," she whispered into the camera, a grin stretching across her face. "You're about to see the easiest money I've ever made. Watch this." Her viewers threw emojis and typed excited messages. Dana loved that. She loved the thrill of having an audience, loved the rush of speaking directly into a camera as if the entire world hung on her next move. But unlike most live streamers who hunted for harmless excitement, pranks, dance trends, makeup challenges, Dana had chosen something riskier. She was going to steal an entire display of designer sunglasses from a high-end boutique. Not one pair. The whole tray.it was her latest stunt, one she assumed would rocket her into viral fame. She had done smaller things before, walking out with an unpaid smoothie, sneaking into a staff-only corridor, pretending to take merchandise but putting it back right before leaving. But this time, she wanted something that couldn't be mistaken as harmless. A crime people would talk about. She flipped the camera to show the boutique entrance. The store clerk was busy organizing a rack of scarves near the register, her back turned and headphones in. Dana zoomed in. "Perfect," she whispered. She strutted toward the sunglasses display, her camera still rolling. The chat exploded. "No way she's doing this. Girl, you're wild. This gonna end bad. Record this from closer." Dana obeyed the crowd. She lowered her phone so her audience could watch her hand hovering over the tray like she was selecting an item to inspect. But instead of picking up a single pair, she grabbed the entire acrylic case. The moment her fingers curled around the edges, her pulse skyrocketed. Her heart hammered so hard she could hear it. She lifted the tray slowly, glancing back at the clerk, still facing away, still humming to her music. This was too easy, Dana mouthed. "Watch this," and began to walk out of the store, tray tucked under her arm like a stack of books. She didn't run. She didn't sneak. She just walked casually past the store entrance, out into the mall's main walkway. Behind her, the live stream chat burst. "She did it, OMG. RUNNN. This is literally evidence. Girl, put the camera down." But Dana couldn't stop smiling. She turned the camera back toward her face. "That was so easy," she whispered, giggling. "She didn't even look. Y'all, this is what happens when people underestimate me." She headed toward the parking lot, planning to throw the tray in the backseat before circling back to show off each pair individually for her stream. She wanted the moment to last. She wanted her viewers to feel like they were part of something big. But she was too busy reading comments to notice the mall security officer standing ahead of her near the exit. He wasn't there because someone had reported her. He wasn't there because the clerk had noticed. He didn't even know a crime had been committed. He was there because one of the live stream viewers had already called the mall. Dana didn't know that. She only noticed him when he stepped forward, placing a hand gently in front of her path. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "can I see what you're carrying?" Dana froze. Her phone buzzed in her hand as the chat went berserk. "Oh no. She's caught. Girl, abort mission. Don't show him." She forced a laugh. "It's just something I'm buying," she lied, shifting the tray behind her back. The guard raised an eyebrow. "From which store?" The sunglasses place right back there." "You have a receipt?" Her mouth went dry. She could feel the live stream watching her crumble in real time. Without thinking, she lifted her phone and tried to adjust the camera angle so the audience wouldn't see her panic. But that only made the guard more suspicious. "Ma'am," he said, firmer now, "I'm going to need you to come with me." Dana took a step backward. The guard reached for his radio. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just ran. The tray clattered as she sprinted down the corridor, sunglasses flying out like scattered playing cards. Some fell under her feet, causing her to stumble. Others skidded across the tile floor. But she didn't stop. She ran past empty kiosks, weaving between pillars, breath sharp and ragged. Her phone wobbled wildly, still streaming, comments flashing frantically across the screen. "Why are you still live? Turn it off, this is so stupid, OMG, the guard is right behind you." He was. And so were two more now, alerted by radio chatter. Dana darted into a side hallway, hoping for a shortcut to the parking lot. Instead, she found a dead end with a locked maintenance door. She turned around just in time to see the officers closing in, the nearest one slowing down so he didn't startle her. "Ma'am, it's over. Just put the phone down." She didn't. She held it tighter, pointing it directly at her own face as if the audience could save her. as if the people posting laughing emojis could somehow pull her out of reality. Her voice shook. Guys, I think I messed up. Security reached her. They didn't tackle her or yell. They just gently took the tray from her trembling hands and asked her to sit. Her phone finally slipped from her grip, clattering onto the floor but still recording sideways, capturing her knees, her shoes, the distant chatter of officers calling the boutique to confirm the theft. Mall security handed her over to local police within 10 minutes. And by then, the live stream had gone completely viral. Screenshots filled social media. The comments she craved were replaced by accusations, jokes at her expense, predictions about her future in court. The boutique manager arrived, shocked by the damage, but even more stunned when officers showed her the live stream footage. Why would she film this? The manager asked, shaking her head. No one had an answer. In the interview room, Dana stared at the table in front of her, unable to reconcile how quickly everything had unraveled. She had been chasing a moment of attention, nothing more. A stunt for strangers. A thrill for people she didn't know. But the live stream had given the police everything they needed. Timestamps. Location. Her face. Her voice. Her confession. Her escape attempt. Even the exact moment she took the tray. It was a complete digital record of her crime. She didn't deny anything. She couldn't. All she could do was sit silently as the consequences became clearer: criminal charges, restitution costs, and the very real possibility of time in a detention center. Not because she stole sunglasses, but because she wanted people to watch her steal them. In the end, the live stream gave her the audience she wanted, just not the reputation she imagined. The backyard belonged to a quiet suburban home, freshly cut lawn, a wooden fence faded from years of sunlight, and a sagging trampoline in the corner that squeaked with the slightest breeze. It should have been a peaceful place, the kind of yard where kids ran barefoot and neighbors shared barbecues. But on that humid afternoon, it wasn't quiet. It was crowded. What drew everyone there wasn't a birthday party or a summer gathering. It was a fight, planned, hyped, and filmed. 17-year-old Marcus had always wanted to be famous. Not for sports, not for music, not for anything that required long training or patience. He wanted the kind of quick fame that came from viral clips, moments shared, reposted, stitched, remixed, and seen by strangers who didn't know him but might still root for him. His social media pages were scattered with half-hearted attempts, pranks on his brother, rooftop selfies, rants about school, flashy videos of him revving his friend's motorcycle. But none of it gained traction. His followers hovered around a few hundred. His videos rarely got more than a handful of likes. Then he had an idea: a fight. Not a spontaneous one, not the messy kind filmed on shaky phones near school buses. He wanted something that looked organized, cinematic even. Something that would scream main character energy. He convinced his friend Jalen to be part of it. They agreed on rules: no weapons, no cheap shots, no one calling the police. Both boys would act tough, maybe throw a few punches, but keep it light enough to avoid real harm. It was supposed to be a performance, a stage scuffle designed to look raw and intense on camera. Marcus posted a teaser the day before. "Live backyard fight tomorrow. You don't want to miss this." Within hours, comments poured in from classmates, friends, strangers, even troll accounts. The attention gave Marcus a rush he had never felt before. He didn't sleep much that night. When he did, he dreamed of notifications exploding across his screen, of people chanting his name, of going viral for something finally worth noticing. The next afternoon, the backyard filled with teens holding phones. Some leaned on the fence. Others sat on overturned buckets. A few climbed onto the trampoline to get a better view. Marcus loved it, the noise, the energy, the eyes on him. But what he didn't notice was the tension building around Jalen. Jalen wasn't a performer. He had agreed to help, sure, but as the crowd grew, so did his uneasiness. He didn't like crowds watching him. And he especially didn't like the boys whispering behind him, making bets about who would win. When Marcus went live minutes before the fight, hundreds joined instantly. It was more than he had ever hoped for. His grin stretched across his face as he held the camera high. "Let's do this," he said, bouncing on his heels. Jalen didn't grin back. The fight started simple: pushing, posturing, dramatic shoves meant to hype the crowd. Marcus played it up for the camera, shouting things he didn't mean, pacing with exaggerated confidence. But Jalen was quiet. Too quiet. Someone in the crowd yelled, "Hit him for real!" Marcus laughed and threw a weak punch to Jalen's shoulder, expecting him to play along like they rehearsed. But Jalen snapped. His fist came fast, connecting squarely with Marcus's jaw, harder than anything planned. Marcus stumbled. The crowd roared. The live stream chat exploded with laughing emojis and cheering text. The punch stunned Marcus, not just the impact, but the betrayal. His embarrassment flared hotter than the pain. Instead of backing off and resetting the show, he lunged back with real anger. The staged fight was gone. What followed was messy, uncontrolled, fueled by humiliation and adrenaline. The boys grappled, rolled onto the grass, and swung blindly. The cheering around them shifted, becoming sharper, more excited, like spectators at a real brawl rather than a staged performance. Phones zoomed in. Someone climbed onto the fence for a better angle. Jalen tried to pull away after a few hits, but Marcus didn't let him. He grabbed Jalen's shirt and pulled him back down. The live stream captured every moment, panting, yelling, fists and feet tangled in a messy scramble. Then came the moment that changed everything. In a burst of panic, Jalen shoved Marcus off him with more force than intended. Marcus's head struck the edge of the trampoline frame, a metal rim that had rusted over the years. The sound was sickening and unmistakable. The crowd gasped. The live stream chat froze for a moment, then exploded again, but now with horror instead of excitement. Marcus lay still, breath shaky and shallow, one hand instinctively reaching toward the back of his head. The live stream caught everything: the confusion, the slow-moving panic, the realization that things had gone far beyond a viral stunt. Jalen backed away, shaking, his hands trembling in the air. He slipped, I didn't mean." His voice cracked, but no one listened. Most kids in the yard dropped their phones. Some ran. Some yelled to call an ambulance. A few kept filming, unsure of whether to help or keep capturing the chaos. The live stream never stopped. Viewers typed frantically, "Call 911. Is he dead? This is not staged. End the live! End the live! Oh my God, this is evidence, turn it off." But Marcus's phone lay on the ground, propped against a shoe, camera still facing him. His face was pale. His eyelids fluttered. His breathing grew shallow and uneven. Blood seeped slowly into the grass beneath him. Emergency services arrived minutes later because one viewer, watching from hundreds of miles away, had called the police after recognizing that the incident was real. Paramedics rushed Marcus to the hospital. The live stream finally cut off when one of them kicked the phone aside while kneeling next to him. What the boys saw as a backyard stunt had transformed into a digital crime scene broadcast in real time to more than 3,000 viewers. At the hospital, Marcus survived, but the blow had caused a concussion and a skull fracture. The police reviewed the live stream footage and gathered statements from the teens who stayed behind. There was no mystery to solve. They had video evidence from multiple angles. They had timestamps, comments, and the entire sequence recorded from beginning to end. Even though the injury wasn't intentional, the consequences were serious. Jalen, under immense stress and guilt, faced charges for aggravated assault, charges shaped not by what he meant to do, but by what had happened on camera. Marcus faced consequences too. Not legal ones, but personal ones: reputation, trust, and the realization that chasing viral attention had pushed him into something dangerous with no safety net. The backyard returned to its quiet normalcy in the days that followed. The grass eventually grew over the stains. The fence still leaned, the trampoline still sagged. But the neighborhood would never forget what had happened there, not because people witnessed it in person, but because thousands had watched it online. A stunt meant for attention had become evidence. A live stream meant for entertainment had become a record, and a fight meant to be staged had become painfully, irreversibly real. The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that crept beneath jackets and settled deep into the bones. Wind rustled through piles of leaves that had gathered along the edges of the old suburban street. Most houses were dark, curtains pulled closed, porch lights dimmed. It was the kind of quiet night when nothing seemed likely to happen. But in the middle of that silence, two teenagers, Evan and Colby, were walking the sidewalk in low voices, hoodies pulled up, their steps slow and calculated. Evan held a phone in his hand, its screen casting a pale glow across his face. Notifications flicked in the corner of the display. Hundreds of viewers were already waiting. The live stream was titled, "Tonight We're Doing Something Wild." It was meant to grab attention. Evan didn't expect the stream to explode the way it did. Over the past year, he had grown obsessed with online clout, watching others go viral for pranks, stunts, and confrontational videos. He wanted the same thrill. But unlike others, he didn't understand the line between risky entertainment and outright criminal behavior. Colby understood even less. He followed Evan with nervous glances at the houses they passed. His stomach twisted with the anticipation of doing something he knew was wrong, but he pushed the feeling aside every time he thought of the comments they would get. Fame seemed close enough to grab. "Ready?" Evan whispered, stopping in front of a pale blue house with a cracked front walkway and an overgrown garden. Colby nodded, though uneasily. "It's empty, right?" "You saw the post," Evan replied, holding up his phone. "The family's in Hawaii. They won't be back for days." This wasn't a random target. Earlier in the week, someone from school had posted publicly about the vacation, complete with airport photos and timestamps. Evan saw an opportunity, an empty house, a guaranteed window of time, and a chance to create a live stream no one would forget. The problem was that Evan had never committed a crime before. Neither had Colby. They didn't know what they were doing, not really. They only knew the image they wanted to broadcast: two bold teens sneaking into a house, not to steal anything serious, just to explore, to push boundaries, to look daring. Evan pressed the phone screen and switched to the front camera. "All right, guys," he whispered for the stream. "We're going in." Comments flew across the screen. "No way you're actually doing it." "LMAO, this is fake." "Show the door." "Don't be scared." The viewers didn't take it seriously. Many assumed it was a joke. Some encouraged them recklessly. Others tried to warn them, telling them to stop before things went too far. But Evan didn't read most of it. His heart pounded with excitement and fear. Mostly excitement. He tucked the phone into the front pocket of his hoodie, leaving the camera facing outward, giving viewers a shaky, partially obscured view of what was happening. They moved quietly along the side of the house, where a sliding glass door led into the kitchen. Evan had checked it earlier in the day. It didn't lock properly. A small gap remained between the frame and the glass. When pushed hard enough, he pressed his palms against the cool surface and shoved. The door slid open a few inches. He glanced at Colby. "See? Easy." They stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of dust and air freshener. The kitchen counters were clean, a bowl of fruit sat on the table, and a calendar on the wall displayed the family's schedule: dentist appointments, soccer practice, school meetings. Everything felt frozen in time, waiting for its owners to return. The phone captured bits and pieces: tiled floors, a cabinet handle, the edge of the table. The audio picked up the boys whispering and their nervous laughter. "What should we do?" Colby asked quietly. "Let's check upstairs," Evan said. "There's gotta be something cool." They tiptoed through the living room and climbed the stairs. Every step creaked slightly, making their hearts jump. The live stream chat continued scrolling fast, now filled with viewers saying the boys were going to get caught, that the police would show up, that this wasn't content, it was evidence. Upstairs, they wandered room to room, opening drawers, looking inside closets, commenting quietly on random objects as if giving a tour. Neither of them took anything at first. They were too caught up in the thrill of exploring someone else's home, unaware of the gravity of what they were doing. "Dude," Colby whispered in one of the bedrooms. "Is that a safe?" It was, a small metal lockbox tucked into the bottom of a closet. Evan pulled it out, shaking it lightly. It rattled. "Probably jewelry," he whispered. "This could go crazy viral." The live stream captured the moment he tried to pry it open using a metal coat hanger he found nearby. It wasn't easy. He jammed the hook under the latch and pushed, grunting from effort. The phone recorded everything from the pocket, hands pulling, metal scraping, breath quickening. Finally, with a loud pop, the lock broke. Inside were small envelopes, a watch, and a stack of bonds. Evan's eyes widened. "What is all this?" Colby asked. "I don't know," Evan said, his voice shaking. "But it looks expensive." The live stream chat erupted. "Bro, stop. This is a felony. End the stream. No way this is real. They just broke into someone's house on live." The viewers were no longer amused. Many were horrified. Some argued in the chat about whether to call the police. A few claimed they already had. But Evan didn't check the phone. He didn't read the warnings. All he saw was opportunity, a moment he believed would make him famous. "We should take it," Evan whispered. Colby stepped back. "No, man. We said we weren't stealing anything. We came this far. Might as well." "Evan, seriously." Their argument was interrupted by a faint sound downstairs. A door opening. Both froze. Footsteps echoed through the house, slow, cautious, unfamiliar. The boys stared at each other, eyes wide. The live stream caught only the muffled audio, someone moving through the hallway below. "They're supposed to be in Hawaii," Colby mouthed. Evan's hands shook as he stuffed the open lockbox back into the closet. He grabbed his phone from his pocket and killed the light. The screen brightened for a moment, revealing the number of viewers, far more than earlier. Someone was watching this unfold live. The footsteps grew louder. "Hide," Evan whispered. They ducked behind the bed, crouched low, breath shallow. A voice called from downstairs. "Hello? I heard noise." The boys didn't recognize it. It wasn't the homeowner. It was a neighbor. Earlier that night, the neighbor had taken out the trash and noticed the sliding door slightly ajar. He had checked it again after seeing two figures walking near the house. When he heard movement inside, he didn't hesitate. He let himself in through the open door, thinking maybe it was the wind, until he heard the thumping upstairs. Now he climbed the staircase slowly. The live stream viewers typed frantically. "The neighbor is gonna catch them. Oh God. This is about to get bad. Call the cops. Why hasn't he ended the stream?" Upstairs, the boys held their breath. The neighbor entered the bedroom. His silhouette appeared in the doorway. He moved cautiously, scanning the room. When he stepped toward the closet, his foot tapped the corner of the lockbox. He looked down. "Hey! Who's in here?" he shouted. The boys panicked. Evan bolted first, sprinting past the neighbor and down the hallway. Colby followed, tripping on the edge of the rug but scrambling up again. The neighbor yelled after them, racing to the top of the stairs as they fled. They barreled down the steps, through the kitchen, and out the sliding door. They didn't stop running until they reached the dark street. The live stream was still rolling, capturing only the sound of wind, footsteps, and panicked breathing. Minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance. Viewers knew what was coming before the boys did. Police arrived at the house, reviewed the neighbor's statement, and requested copies of the live stream from anyone who recorded it. They traced Evan's account easily. His face, full name, and school were all public. By the next morning, officers knocked on both boys' doors. The live stream had become airtight evidence. Evan and Colby didn't gain fame. They didn't gain followers. They didn't get viral glory. All they gained was a criminal record, built entirely by their own hands, broadcast in real time, and preserved forever by strangers on the internet. The morning sun beat down harshly on the streets of Nebraska as Hannah Sabata cruised down the quiet road in a dusty, teal Pontiac. Her foot tapped impatiently against the floorboard. The car wasn't hers, she had stolen it earlier that day, but for the moment, it felt like the perfect vehicle for the plan she'd been building in her mind. Hannah was 25, restless, angry, and spiraling. She had argued with her boyfriend the night before, lost her part-time job 2 weeks earlier, and convinced herself that the world had backed her into a corner. Her life felt like a series of disappointments. and she decided she was done being ignored. She wanted a moment where she controlled the narrative. A moment where everything stopped being predictable, and she believed she had found a way. In her backpack were two things she considered essential: a handwritten note and a loosely folded bandana. Neither was sophisticated. The note was scrawled in thick black marker. The bandana was something she grabbed from her dresser that morning. But in her mind, it was enough. She pulled into the small gravel lot in front of the local bank. A single security camera near the roof rotated back and forth with mechanical indifference. The parking lot was almost empty. Only one other car parked near the entrance. Hannah shut off the engine, took a deep breath, and repeated the same sentence she had been whispering to herself all morning. "I'm doing this. I'm not turning back." Inside the bank, only a few customers stood in line. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, while the tellers sorted through stacks of bills and printed receipts. Everything about the room felt ordinary. Hannah walked through the double glass doors wearing the bandana loosely around her neck. She didn't pull it up over her face. She didn't wear sunglasses. She didn't hide her hair. She walked in looking like herself, because she hadn't put much energy into disguising anything. She approached the counter, slid the handwritten note toward the teller, and kept her gaze fixed on the floor. The teller stared at the paper, reading the jagged words. "You have 1 minute. Give me the money. No alarms. I have a gun." Hannah didn't actually have a weapon, but the teller couldn't risk assuming otherwise. Her hands shook slightly as she opened her drawer and pulled out stacks of cash, 20s, 50s, 100s, bundling them quickly and pushing them into the bag Hannah held open. Other employees noticed the tension and froze, their instincts warning them that something was unfolding. Hannah didn't make eye contact with anyone. She clutched the bag tightly, turned, and walked out of the bank with hurried steps, her heart battering against her ribs. Outside, she ran to the stolen Pontiac, fumbled with the door, and peeled out of the lot, gravel kicking up behind her. But the strangest part of the entire crime hadn't happened yet. Hours later, instead of hiding the money, destroying evidence, or laying low like most criminals would, Hannah sat on her bed in a small room lit by a dim lamp. She set up her laptop, angled the webcam toward herself, and pressed record. She titled the video simply, "Chick Bank Robber." Then she began documenting everything. She started with a wordless performance, holding up handwritten notes on sheets of paper as music played in the background. One card read, "I just stole a car." Another, "and robbed a bank." She held up the stack of cash, fanned it out for the camera, and smiled proudly. Her eyes shined with a manic confidence, as though she believed she had just pulled off something brilliant. Her voice never appeared in the video. Instead, she communicated through the signs she flipped one after another. "I'm going to pay off my debts. And maybe start a new life." She held up the car keys she had taken earlier, her fingers trembling with excitement. She waved the bandana she wore during the robbery. She held up the backpack stuffed with money. The evidence was overwhelming, even before the police saw it. Hannah posted the video publicly, not under a fake name or a burner account, but under her actual YouTube profile. She didn't hide her face, her clothes, her room, or her surroundings. She left her identity wide open, as if she wanted to be found. As if the crime were less important than the attention she imagined it would bring. Within hours, the video began circulating. Some viewers thought it was a joke, maybe an attempt at satire or a badly acted skit. Others recognized the town, the bank, and even the car. One viewer sent a link directly to local law enforcement. Minutes later, officers gathered around a computer screen in their station, watching Hannah flip through her cards with almost childlike enthusiasm. Every frame deepened their shock. She had confessed in writing, displayed the stolen money, shown the stolen car keys, and even revealed the exact clothing she wore during the robbery. Investigators didn't need to search for clues. She had digitized everything, packaged it neatly, and uploaded it for the world to see. Before the sun rose the next morning, a patrol car pulled up outside Hannah's home. She was still awake, scrolling through comments under her video, many of which begged her to delete it. Police knocked on her door. She opened it without hesitation. Her arrest was calm, almost surreal. Officers read her rights, handcuffed her gently, and guided her toward the squad car. She didn't resist. She didn't protest. She didn't deny anything. In the patrol car's rear seat, she stared out the window with a blank look, as if the reality of what she had done had just settled onto her shoulders. Back at the station, detectives replayed the video frame by frame, documenting every detail. The timestamps matched the robbery timeline. The cash bundles matched the bank's missing totals. The handwriting on the signs matched the handwriting on the demand note. The case was solved before it had a chance to begin. During questioning, Hannah gave short, disjointed answers. There was no elaborate motive, no mastermind reasoning. She said she felt overwhelmed. She said she wanted a fresh start. She said she didn't think things through. The most startling admission was that she believed the video wouldn't actually be taken seriously. She thought people would see it as performance art, a chaotic expression of frustration, not a confession. The police didn't see it that way. In the days that followed, local news outlets ran the story. Reporters referred to it as one of the most open and shut cases they had ever witnessed. Commentators debated whether Hannah wanted to be caught, or whether she simply didn't understand the consequences of posting a criminal act online. Inside her jail cell, Hannah gained none of the attention she had imagined. Her video didn't make her admired. It didn't make her a rebel or a sensation. It became part of her case file, displayed in court exactly the way she had filmed it, raw, unfiltered, and incriminating. Her final moment of notoriety came not from the robbery itself, but from the decision that led to her downfall. She turned her own crime into an online show, recorded it proudly, and handed the evidence directly to the world. The internet didn't need to expose her. She exposed herself. The sky was a flat sheet of gray as the two men sat in their parked sedan outside the jewelry store. The engine idled quietly, rumbling beneath their seats like a restless animal. The storefront in front of them was modest, glass windows, blue awning, an LED sign flickering with the words, "Fine Gold and Repairs." Nothing about it seemed like the kind of place that would become the center of a digital spectacle. Yet that was exactly what was about to happen. Inside the car, 22-year-old DeMarcus scrolled through his phone with excitement softening the edges of his anxiety. His friend, Rico, sat in the passenger seat, bouncing his knee up and down, clutching the handle of his hoodie pocket where a small imitation firearm was hidden. They had been planning the robbery for 2 days. It wasn't a complicated plan. It wasn't even a smart one. But they believed they had a twist, something that would set them apart, make them unforgettable. They wanted fame, attention, and the validation that came with viral views. And they thought they knew exactly how to get it. "Yo," Rico said, leaning over. "You going live?" DeMarcus grinned. He tapped the screen, opened the Facebook app, and hovered his thumb over the Go Live button. "Yeah," he said. "Let the world see this." The idea had come from DeMarcus earlier that week. He had seen prank videos, challenge videos, and live streams of people doing reckless things for views. He knew shock value got attention. People tuned in when they couldn't believe what they were watching. That was the formula, he figured. That was how you got noticed. So why not live stream a robbery? He had said it half-jokingly at first, but once the idea was out, it stuck. Rico had laughed, then hesitated, then finally agreed. The thrill of being watched had tempted both of them more than the money itself. DeMarcus raised his phone, fixed the camera on himself, and pressed Go Live. The feed blinked twice and went active. "Yo, what's good, Facebook?" he said, smiling as though he were about to announce a party instead of a crime. "Stay tuned. We 'bout to hit a lick." In seconds, notifications popped up. Friends joined the stream. Curious strangers tuned in. A few people typed comments, some laughing, some confused, some asking if this was a joke. Rico leaned into the frame, flashing a peace sign. "They ain't ready for this," he said. Then they stepped out of the car. The live stream continued, shaking slightly with each of DeMarcus's steps. Viewers watched as the two men crossed the parking lot, walked straight up to the jewelry store door, and pulled their hoods over their heads. Inside, the store was quiet. Two customers browsed the display cases while a single employee stood behind the counter polishing a ring with a small cloth. The bell above the door chimed softly as DeMarcus and Rico entered. At first, no one noticed the phone. No one recognized they were being broadcast to dozens of people, and soon, hundreds. Rico stepped forward, pulling the imitation gun from his hoodie pocket and pointing it toward the ceiling. "Everybody back up!" he shouted. "Hands where I can see 'em!" The customers froze. The employee dropped the ring she was holding, her hands trembling as she raised them in the air. She didn't know the gun was fake. No one did. From her perspective, the situation had just shifted from a quiet afternoon shift to a life-or-death crisis. DeMarcus swung the camera toward the scene like a documentary filmmaker capturing raw footage. "Y'all watching this? We told you," he said to the live stream viewers. Comments flooded the feed. "Bro, is this FR real? Yo, stop, this ain't funny. I'm calling the cops right now, dude's wild. This better be a prank. Where is this?" He ignored them. Rico rushed behind the counter and pulled a small black duffel bag from his backpack. He yanked open display case after display case, sweeping handfuls of jewelry, chains, watches, earrings, into the bag. The employee whimpered, but Rico barked at her to stay still. Meanwhile, DeMarcus kept filming, turning his phone to capture his friend's movements, the store interior, the terrified customers, even himself again. He narrated the crime like a performer who believed he was starring in his breakout moment. "Easy money," he said, laughing. "Facebook Live, baby! Y'all seeing this?" What he didn't realize was that dozens of viewers were already reporting the stream. Someone recognized the store. Someone else recognized the car. Another person knew exactly where the two lived. Police dispatchers received multiple calls, not one, not two, but over a dozen, within minutes of the broadcast starting. Inside the jewelry shop, Rico zipped up the bag and shouted, "Let's go! We got it!" They rushed back toward the door. The bell dinged again as they stepped outside, running toward their car. DeMarcus kept the camera pointed at their faces, breathless and laughing as they sprinted across the parking lot. But something was wrong. Two police cruisers turned sharply into the lot, tires screeching. Rico froze. No. How'd they get here so fast?" DeMarcus's live stream caught the exact moment the realization hit him. His smile dropped. His breath caught. His eyes darted to the police cars, the officers exiting with weapons drawn, the flashing lights bouncing off the store windows. The live stream didn't cut out. It kept filming as the officers shouted commands. "Hands up! Don't move!" Rico dropped the duffel bag instinctively. Jewelry spilled across the asphalt. DeMarcus fumbled with his phone for a split second, as though maybe the camera was the thing causing the trouble, as though ending the stream might somehow undo everything. But it was too late. The officers moved in quickly. They ordered the two men to lie face down on the ground. Rico obeyed immediately, his body shaking. DeMarcus hesitated, looking back at the phone in his hand like he didn't understand how things had unraveled so fast. Then an officer stepped forward and kicked the phone away. The live stream ended abruptly, cutting to a shaky, final frame of police boots and scattered chains glittering on the pavement. Back at the station, officers reviewed the footage with stunned disbelief. There was no need to gather witness statements. No need to track down suspects. No need to reconstruct the timeline. The suspects had broadcast every moment, from the planning inside the car to the robbery to the moment of their arrest. The evidence was clearer than any testimonial could ever be. The next morning, headlines spread across local news stations. "Robbery suspects arrested after streaming crime on Facebook Live." "Police say live stream was key in immediate capture." "Digital confession goes viral after failed jewelry heist." Friends and family reacted with shock. Some laughed at the absurdity of it. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The live stream was saved, duplicated, reposted, and shared across social platforms, a living reminder of how quickly a quest for online attention could turn into self-incrimination. In the end, the two men had wanted an audience, and they got one.